Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video. And today I'm going to be doing an update video. Now, an update video meaning that last year I did the top 10 Kitchener Ranger moments. However, what happened is that there's been a magical moment for the Kitchener Rangers in 2026 that had happened so much it definitely deserves to get into the top 10. And so obviously I made a top 10 and everything and made a little bit of a replacement, if you will, within the top 10. And I rearranged a few events. So here, sorry. So here we go. Number 10 is the connection with the New York Rangers. So when Kitchener got the team from Guelph in 1963, like Guelph was financially ruined, and the Ontario Hockey Association, the predecessor to the OHL, Kitchener named themselves the Rangers and were a feeder team to the New York Rangers because people like Wally Kachuk and a few others were Kitchener Rangers, then became New York Rangers. But by 1967, when sponsorship ended and the draft was in its major phase, the NHL didn't need sponsorships. So Eugene George actually bought the team from the New York Rangers for one solitary dollar and publicly decided to make it a public team ownership, meaning that there no privatization, meaning that season ticket holders had a piece of the Kitchener Rangers. There would be some people, of course, being elected in high positions, but that's what it is. So that's kind of the Kitchener Rangers NHL thing. Number 9 is the 1990 Memorial Cup. I know you'll be thinking, wait a minute, why you put it so low? Well, I know there's 7 Memorial Cups. All 7 of them are on this list, right? Oh no, I didn't put the 1984 one on there, right? Right. Yeah, so it's 84/90, if you will. 1984, Kitchener got to host the Memorial Cup. They would be joined by Ottawa, Laval, with a young Mario Lemieux, a draft eligible Mario Lemieux at that, and I think it was Kelowna, not Brandon. Brandon? No, I don't know. Nevertheless, Kitchener beat everybody, including Ottawa, to go to the finals automatically because the number 1 seed got to go to the finals after the round robin. Ottawa won the semifinals against Laval. Oh yeah, it was Kamloops who was the 4th team in 1984. And then Ottawa shocked Kitchener, winning the Memorial Cup in Kitchener 7-2. Darren Pang and Gary Roberts won a Memorial Cup ring. In 1990, Kitchener lost to Oshawa in the final of the Memorial Cup, the OHL title. So Oshawa was going to the Memorial Cup held in Hamilton. One tiny problem, Hamilton's OHL team was so crappy that their spot was taken away from the Memorial Cup. So that meant the OHL finalists, which is Kitchener, got to go in. Kitchener lost to Oshawa on the final day of round robin play. Had to beat Kamloops, was it? Yeah, in the semifinals, and then Laval was also there too. But yeah, Kitchener went to the semifinals, and then they beat up on, and then they had to go to double overtime against Oshawa. Bill Armstrong scoring a goal past Mike Torquia. And Oshawa were the Memorial Cup champs with Eric Lindros and a few other players in tow. Number 8 is the fan base. The fact that they've got a very good fan base. Put it high on this list. The fact of the matter is the fan base is pretty impressive and all that, with the publicly owned team, but the shareholders having a piece of the team. That you had a lot of great fan base. And in the 2026 Memorial Cup, that was the case. I mean, Kitchener, I think, had one of the best fan bases, other than the host Kelowna team. But I think that they would travel near and far. And after all, there was a group of 30 of them waiting at the auditorium after Kitchener came back with the Memorial Cup Monday morning. So, we have a lot of diehards. Number 7 is the alumni that the Kitchener Rangers have. There is a video about the Kitchener Rangers. I go through the Wikipedia page and basically talk about Kitchener at length. And I will load it in the description. But the fact of the matter is that Kitchener's alumni list is huge. We have not 1, not 2, but 5 former Kitchener Rangers in the Hall of Fame, if I can remember them off the top of my head. Bill Barber, great power forward with the Philadelphia Flyers, winning a pair of Stanley Cups 74 and 75. Al MacInnis, known for his booming slap shot from Nova Scotia, Kitchener knew how to get people from the East Coast. Calgary and St. Louis were his only two stops. Paul Coffey played half a year with Kitchener before being drafted in 1980. And he actually played for many teams. Edmonton and Pittsburgh are his most known. But he went to LA, Detroit, Carolina, Boston, and probably one more. I do not remember. Larry Robinson, known for his Big Bird style, and he was pretty good. Drafted in the first round by Montreal in 1972, I think. And then from 1973 to 1989, he was a mainstay, one of the big three on defense with Guy Lapointe and Serge Savard. And then he left for a few years with Los Angeles playing with Gretzky. And the fifth Hall of Famer is the bruising defenseman known as Scott Stevens, who was a Kitchener native, if you want to know. So he went to Washington, then to St. Louis for a year, was gifted to New Jersey because St. Louis signed Brendan Shanahan to free agency. And then, compensation had to happen, free agent compensation. And he stayed with the Devils and won a few cups with them. So yeah, we have the fact of the tournaments. Number 6 is the stunning CHL fact that Kitchener's been to 7 Memorial Cup finals. But what's even more crazy is that we've been to 7 Memorial Cup finals. You don't see that from any other team, including London. To be polite, I will not spit when I say their name. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, Kitchener's won 3 Memorial Cups. They've went to 7 Memorial Cups as a team since the format changed in 1972 to a round robin from an East versus West thingy. And then, of course, yeah, 7 finals and all that. That's pretty impressive. Of course, I talked about the 84 way that Kitchener won their way to the final through a bye because they were 3-0 in the round robin. In 1990, losing to Oshawa on the final day, that meant they had to play Laval in the semifinals. I said Kamloops, I'm sorry. So that's what happened. Number 5 and the last non-Memorial Cup thing is the reverse sweep of Windsor in 2025. Kitchener had this thing with dealing with Windsor. In 2023, Windsor had the number 1 pick and traded away 5 big draft picks to Kingston to get the rights to Shane Wright. And Shane Wright was supposed to be this guy that lift Windsor over Kitchener in the playoffs. One tiny problem, Kitchener didn't let Windsor off the hook. In fact, Kitchener swept Windsor, which was one of the most shocking OHL upsets in history, up there with North Bay taking us out in 1989. But the fact of the matter is that Kitchener 2 years later would face Windsor. It was it 1 versus 2? No, it was 1 versus 3. Windsor were the top team in the West. Kitchener would have been number 2. Oh, yeah, they were number 3. Sorry. Yeah, so Windsor took on Kitchener, a great conference battle and all that. And then, how Kitchener and Windsor played. Windsor was up 3-0. It was over, but Kitchener somehow pulled through the fire and won 4 straight. It was revenge because in 2010, Kitchener was up 3-0 in the Western Final, but got reverse swept by Windsor, who then went on to win the Memorial Cup. So that's what happened. All right. Number 4 is the 2008 Memorial Cup that Kitchener hosted. So Kitchener hosted the Memorial Cup in 2008. They got gifted it late in 2007. That meant they obviously were in with the OHL champs, the Quebec League champs, and the Western champs. Kitchener were pretty good. They did win the OHL title in 2008, beating Belleville, despite being nearly reverse swept. They were up 3-0 on Belleville, then lost 3, then won Game 7. Thank you. So yeah, Kitchener got into the Memorial Cup, and since they were in the Memorial Cup, Belleville got in the Memorial Cup, and that meant PK Subban was in there. The Quebec team was represented by the Olympique, and the Western Hockey League champs were Spokane out of Washington State. Yeah, I just realized that. They have. I told Bill that there were three Washington State teams in the WHL. Four. I forgot about Spokane. It wasn't on purpose. So yeah, Kitchener actually got handled by Belleville. They had to go to the semifinals against Belleville, beat them 9-0 to get to the final against Spokane. And thanks to Jared Cowan and Dustin Tokarski's efforts, Spokane beat Kitchener 4-1 and basically broke the Memorial Cup as they were trying to pass it along. And it was just shocking. Number three is the 1982 Memorial Cup. But you never forget your first. But the 1982 squad was very impressive. It had Scott Stevens, it had Jeff Larmer, it had Mike Eagles, Mike Wendell Young, and some other players. But yeah, the 1982 team did quite well. Can't remember who they beat in the OHL final, but they had to. The championship was in Hull, Quebec. Well, now it's called Gatineau. Um, Kitchener would face off against Sherbrooke and Victoria. Victoria was no, not Victoria. Who was that Western team? Brandon? Well, it doesn't matter. But yeah, Kitchener would have faced Sherbrooke, known as the Castors or French for Beaver. Make your jokes if you will. But yeah, so Kitchener took on Sherbrooke in the final, and thanks to a Brian Bellows hat trick with 2 assists added on, Kitchener beat up on Sherbrooke 7-4. They won the Memorial Cup. They were Canadian champs, and Kitchener partied, I bet. Of course, this was 3 years before I was born. And this was actually the last Memorial Cup that had a 3-team round robin instead of a 4-team round robin, as the host team would be added in 1983. Number two is the most recent moment, 2026, a great run by the Kitchener Rangers. I know you'll be thinking that should be number one, but I don't want to make recency bias. So the 2026 Rangers were expected to do decently. We got some players back from the AHL and AHL camps. We made some moves and all that. And we even picked up Sam O'Reilly and Jared Woolley from our hated rivals, London, middle of the season. Kitchener went on this nice run. They ended up winning the conference by points. Took Flint down easily, took Sault Ste. Marie down in 5. We took Windsor down in 5. OHL final against Barrie, who shocked Brantford, coming back from 3-1 down in the Eastern final. Kitchener ended up beating Barrie 4 straight, going to the Memorial Cup in Kelowna just recently, and beating Kelowna, beating Chicoutimi, who were the the Quebec League champs, and the Western Hockey League champs, Everett Silvertips. Everett beat Chicoutimi to get to the final against Kitchener, and guess what? Kitchener won the final 6-2. Everett had a goal called back because the puck was batted down with a glove into the net, and Kitchener used a 5-on-3. That number 19 of Everett exasperated because he hit Sam O'Reilly, which was not a penalty, and then for some stupid reason he decided to cross-check him down. And that meant a 5-on-3, which Kitchener scored both times, even though Kitchener only had one power play goal headed into the final. Kitchener won 6-3, 6-2. The last goal was scored by Christian Humphreys, who was victimized by the Chicoutimi player Turgenet, who stomped on his skate 3 times, where once would have been sufficient. So the 2026 Kitchener Rangers are your Memorial Cup champs, defending champs. Unfortunately, with 12 players under NHL contract, Kitchener might not be able to repeat, which is fine. And number one is 2003, because I remember this more fondly because I was 18 years old when this happened. Kitchener had a great team. They had Peter DeBoer and Steve Spott behind the bench. They had a great cast of people. Peter Kanko, known for his multicolored mohawk and all that. Andre Benoit, Steve Eminger, who was returned from Washington to the Kitchener Rangers. Of course, we can't forget Derek Roy, who would be an icon for Buffalo. Mike Richards, who would be an icon for Philly and LA, winning a couple cups with the Kings. Gregory Campbell, Peter Kanko. Oh yeah, I said that. Yeah, Scott Dickey and that. Yeah, it was a great time. Kitchener had a tough time in the conference final against Plymouth, the team that DeBoer and Spott were working for a couple years prior. Plymouth went up 3-2 on a goal by Jimmy Gagnon in Game 5, who was a Kitchener native. But Kitchener roared back in Plymouth to win Game 6 and then won Game 7 on home turf to get to the OHL finals against Brian Kilray, the legendary Brian Kilray, and the Ottawa 67s. Kitchener lost Game 1 but won the next 4. Got to the World Cup held in Quebec City at the Colisée with Hull, Quebec City, well, Hull slash Gatineau, and Kelowna. Kitchener went through the round robin easily, 3-0, and got to the final just like 2026. Then they took on the Olympique and beat them 6-3 to win the title and bring it back to Ontario. So, it's all about the Kitchener Rangers and all that 2026. And, I've been lucky, well, kind of cursed in the sense because my Montreal Alouettes, my New England Patriots, my Toronto Blue Jays, and my Canadian Olympic hockey teams, both of them, men's and women's, all fell flat and taking a sour runner up. Now I got a title under my belt. So I'm happy. Yes, sir, I am. Anyway, Jeff, I'm going to do.